are Pablo
and Wes
at pabloandwes.com. Check us out.
7.
That's right. Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah. Hey, and based on some feedback we got from people on iTunes reviews, they suggested going more in depth in one topic.
That's right.
And that's today's an experimental format. We're trying that out based on what the people said.
One topic, going deeper.
Going deeper.
Yep, got my shovel.
Yeah, so thank you to those people who left us the 5-star reviews and the feedback. We love it.
And keep them coming.
Yeah,
Keep 'em coming.
absolutely. Keep them coming.
We're on YouTube as well, so check it out over there.
Yeah,
Pablo
you can see
and
our
Wes.
faces.
Yeah.
It's weird.
You wanna check us out?
It's not weird.
No.
It's different.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so today's theme is what?
Today's theme is competition versus cooperation between students.
Yeah, so one of the ways to look at this is having games and points and winners and losers and having cooperation like groups.
Because you're a winner and can be a loser.
Yeah, you can
the word loser is harsh.
It is.
Yeah,
but the world
it's a
is
reality.
made up of both winners and losers.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who thinks like, the pain of like real consequences, that's the best instructor. Like if there's no consequences, why would you ever bother to attend to what you're learning?
Nice point.
Well, I'm not sure. I could argue the other way.
Yeah.
We have to have a safe space for the children.
Way to go, Plato. Let's do it.
All right. So, Pablo, do you have in your past, in growing up, do you have memorable experiences with either cooperative learning or competitive situations like games for learning, like as a student?
As a student, it's probably going to be a short answer here, and only because I moved around a lot as a student.
Okay.
So meaning from different school to different school. My parents just moved around finding the best accommodations for us for living.
Yeah.
And so we moved apartments a lot. So that meant I went to different schools. So that might be part of my affect part of my answer, because I don't really remember. People ask me, I know this is a little bit, I'm going sideways on the question, but I don't remember that many teachers.
Yeah.
So therefore the experience is even less.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, no, I don't remember much in terms of, I don't remember any specific games that we played for learning that I would remember like, gosh, that was so cool.
Yeah.
And I remember looking forward to the times that we would do that in terms of, learning content through games. So no,
Right.
I don't have anything. But when we get to the teacher part, I do.
Well, let's go to your experience with basketball, like on the team.
Yeah.
Was there ever competitive drills versus cooperative drills? Because the whole scenario of basketball is it's a game, but how did the coach
But it's also
help
very
you learn?
competitive.
Yeah.
So most games that we had were super uber competitive.
Yeah.
Super uber competitive. You'd have, let's say, a teammate on one side of the court, maybe at the free throw line.
Yeah.
And then on the other free throw line, there would be two players. I can't remember the exact name of the game. So if you know this game, let me know down in the comments or shout us out on social media. But he would roll the ball out to the middle, and as soon as he blew the whistle, it's still rolling. You're like chomping at the
You're sprinting to go get the ball,
and then that's just part of the game. And then you have to go play defense. You have to submit then and say, okay, I didn't get it. You have to play real basketball there. So it's a little bit might be called cutthroat, but that might be another game. But yeah,
it might be pool.
Yeah. But there is in basketball too. So, anyways,
so interesting. So I played basketball in junior high, and our coach did not use games. And practice was boring drills.
Oh, just all drills?
It's just drills, like pivot. No. Don't move this foot, move that foot. Sure. Just a snoozeville, as you would say.
A snoozeville. So
that's interesting. So the games were actually made it.
I'm glad you brought that up. That I guess I did do some. I played basketball for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's interesting the things we learn in sports, and a lot of that. It's very hands-on when you're coaching. You're saying, "Do this, and let me observe you." And sometimes the classroom, we don't have that same mindset of like, it's a playing field, get the students playing.
We should be coaches, absolutely.
Yeah. So me growing up, I was thinking of there was like a game show that I went to a small Christian private school, and we were going to go on a religious game show, and we had like a competition to see who could get the highest scores, and then those 4 students would represent the students like on the TV show. And so I was
nice.
I was typically one of the higher, I was good at school, so I had one of the higher quiz scores. So I can't remember if it was the highest, but let's just
go with it was.
Nobody's going to argue.
Nobody knows.
So I got the highest score in the class, and then I went on the game show. I just remember like the classmates are in the studio and they're watching you, and you're there's a weird environment with lights, not unlike the podcast studio.
Yeah.
And I choked on a question,
Uh-oh.
like for the team, right? And it didn't really cost us. I just remember the embarrassment of like, my class sent me to represent them, and I choked on this Bible trivia question. So, like, sometimes
Wes.
there's that pain of, competition and high stakes. It can be stressful.
I have empathy for you. I feel bad for you there. Like, man.
Thank you.
I put myself in your shoes for a second. Right.
Well, let's dive into our personal experiences with teaching versus cooperation, teaching with cooperation, or competitive strategies.
Yeah.
What's your go-to?
It changed. Like, I loved using the tech. I mean, I did use some, let's just say, cards and things of that nature, physical objects to separate students or just find your group or your tribe to play these games or so on and so forth.
Right.
But a lot of times, especially in my last few years before I went to the district, I utilized a lot of e-games or just think like early on, if anybody remembers, and they're still out there, you can just Google PowerPoint games.
Yeah.
You will get every game, anything that was a game on network television was, there's a form of it in PowerPoint, like Jeopardy
being the top.
That's it. Yeah, right. Jeopardy was number one. But originally for math or for science-based games, I would look there, and that's where I started. Like it was, it was just low-hanging fruit. It was there, and it was in abundance. So used a lot of those. But then I moved into more app-specific games, and also web browser-based specific games like Socrative. Kahoot, quizzes most recently. Yeah. And so a lot of those are very competitive, but they also allow you to differentiate. And meaning you don't have to be the first one and you still get points. Yeah. It's not necessarily you're a complete loser, as we talked about earlier. Right. You might be second, third, fourth, fifth, eighth, whatever, but at least you got a little value added for yourself.
Yeah, and I think Kahoot, my most recent memory, we even use that in staff meetings. Yeah. You have, like, maybe you're the high score on this question because you answered most quickly. Right. But on the next question, you're not. But there's an overall leaderboard, but then you get feedback. So there's more data points coming to you as a teacher and a student to kind of keep you motivated and engaged.
Yeah, opportunities to be successful in the in the journey of the game. Yeah. So
it's interesting because the topic is competition versus cooperation, but you went right to games. So what is that? How do you feel like that resonates with you as a teacher? Were you more likely to do a competitive activity versus a cooperative activity, and why do you think so?
I don't know. I like if in anything I do, I try to have balance. So I certainly,
so wise.
But I try. I didn't say I was always very successful, but on the whole, the net, I think I was just because I get that too much of one thing can, be detrimental in certain aspects. So I think because I was competitive in sports that I've always leaned that way. And so maybe I lean more on the competitive side of things, but I understood that competition isn't necessarily, I don't want to say it's not for everyone. I think everybody should have a certain aspect of competition in their life, but I just realized that it wasn't something for everybody, so I wanted to include more cooperative games, things that it's just a group. There's no winners, there's no losers. We're learning based on the cooperation of a group or a team.
Yeah, I think in teacher ed classes, I was told they heavily emphasize cooperative learning. And even in the first few years of teaching, like our school emphasized that. In your evaluations, they were always asking, about your cooperative structures. And as a new teacher, even though I was told the value, like from the teacher ed program and my administration, the value was on cooperative learning, there wasn't a whole lot of support there to help me learn how to do that. And so my cooperative learning structures were, probably not as tight as they should have been. I'm just going to say it was a mess. I mean, it was, let's just be honest. Yeah. Like it was.
That's new teacher talk, right? Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
New teacher talk is like, I slowly began realizing if I choose this method, then I'm actually probably going to hurt some kids because I don't have the management strategies to make it work. Like I'll have a group where one kid does all the work and 3 of the kids slack off. And so I didn't have the strategies in place to make that work. So I just realized that's not fair. And I found, kind of in contrast, competitive strategies were easier to get everyone engaged. And so I felt like it was more equitable. And so I shifted early on in my teaching career, and I started to value that more. Then as I gained skill, I shifted back and did more cooperative things. But I really felt like, I mean, like you, I valued the competitive, and part of it was because it made me feel like a more effective teacher. I felt like the students were more engaged. I feel like I probably didn't have, even though I felt like they were more engaged, so it's equitable.
Right.
I'm not sure it had like necessarily the depth of learning or the rigor. I'm not sure. Like sometimes I would just call on a game because I'm like, I know I'm going to get them because my classroom management was weak. So the competitive strategy was a way to engage them.
Right.
Yeah. But later, I'll just kind of share this example. Later, I would have, like, we'd read a novel in the sophomore honors English class, and Bless Me Ultima by Rudolfo Anaya was one. And so in that book, there's a young protagonist, and he's experiencing, like, do I want to follow the priesthood and become a Catholic priest, or his grandmother, Ultima, the character, is a curandera. She's like, kind of a healer.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to go this way? So there's this big kind of controversy or theme or conflict in the book. So then we would have a trial toward the end of the book where one team would try to prove that he's fit for the priesthood or he's not fit for the priesthood because he's experimenting in these indigenous, magic.
Right.
So in those, but that would be later, maybe later in the year after there's relationships among the students.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was an example where we used a competitive, but it was both, is a competitive cooperative strategy. So you have teams working together to try to prove, Yeah,
so in both of these scenarios, I really think that whatever you're doing, cooperative, competitive, I think it needs to have a sense or a form of a formative aspect.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Because you should always be learning from your students. It could be informally, but it doesn't matter. You should always be learning from the students, no matter how much fun they may be having. Read into it in some way, shape, or form. It should not be a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way to go. I think formative's always the way to go.
Yeah.
But we're very heavily, I think I bring this up, in a summative world.
Yeah.
When it all boils down to it. So, but push the formative, everybody.
There you go. So we have in our longer, more, I think we call it Go Deep, our Go Deep formats.
Sure. That's our, maybe you guys want to
give us out.
Give us a title for this, but we'll call it Go Deep for now.
For Go Deep for now.
Hitting a home run.
We're going to include a quote or a clip from an outside source, and then we'll share that with you. Then we're going to also touch on a tool of the week, or the tool that you can use for the topic, and then we'll give you kind of our top 3 or top 5 or top 10 takeaway.
Cool. All right, fire it up. You got the thing queued up?
Here is a clip from the teachingchannel.org, and here's a teacher on using games for classroom management.
Cool, let's listen.
Let's do it.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
There it is.
Here we go.
Good morning, you guys. Warm-up is on the board. I'm going to hand out your index cards. Every piece of paper I hand out, we always compete one half of the room versus the other half of the room. Who can get their cards passed out the fastest? Here you go.
They're passing out the cards. That's what they're doing.
I always start at the front. I give both halves equal piles, and they know to take what they need and pass the rest back. They do it silently, and the person in the back holds them up. Whichever side holds their cards up first is the winner. For no prize whatsoever. Just bragging rights.
No prize, just bragging rights. I won.
So did you ever use games for classroom management? Was that something familiar
Absolutely.
to you?
It was always, you heard me saying competitive, but I always thought competitive games. Like mine went right to that. and they're super engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, especially if you can level the playing field.
Yeah.
If you give equal opportunity to kids, like it's not about being super fast in terms of, you have slow twitch and fast twitch fibers. It doesn't matter necessarily, right? Especially in that game you just heard, they're just taking index cards and passing them back.
Right.
I mean, any kid or most kids can do that.
Yeah. But it just introduces like a known structure for accountability. Hey, there's a timer. It's not the teacher yelling at me.
Yeah.
It's kind of depersonalizing some of the management.
Yeah.
Makes it a little bit fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A language arts teacher used to, this wasn't a game or anything, but it was more of a cooperative thing when they moved from, let's say, math to, or I should say a K6 teacher that I know, moved from going from a math lesson, let's say, to a language arts lesson. She would play a song that was 1 minute in length, and they moved their desks into their cooperative groups. And by the time you get, going in the year, that just works.
Yeah.
And so it's a good way to get into. It's a fun way to get into a new subject.
Yeah, and I used to use like some sort of time transition. Hey, I need to see your desk in this shape, and then it's like, hey, it's kind of like that positive feedback. I like how group one has their desks together, and so you're not really calling out the people who aren't coming together with your expectations, but you're affirming the ones who are, and then you're using that kind of positive reinforcement.
Right.
Yeah, and you can gamify that with class group points or things like that as well.
Right, and I think we asked here, we had a question dialed up here, is why is it significant that students compete for no prize whatsoever?
Yeah.
You want to
Well, I can speak to that a little bit. One is giving out prizes all the time isn't sustainable.
No.
And it's not even realistic in terms of what's going to come at them in life.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
I agree and I disagree with myself. Even. I think it is sustainable. It just depends on what the prize is. Like when we say bragging rights, no prize whatsoever, somebody still wins.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of pride. Maybe it's just an internal feeling. It's a limbic system feeling. Yeah. And hey, there's nothing wrong with an emotional prize. So I think it is. And if that's the way you roll with your class, then that's what it's going to be. Yeah. And students will get used to that. But you're right. If you're heavy on the actual physical prize, that could be costly. I don't know, man, unless you're giving them like a single M&M.
Yeah, right.
And they might be happy with that.
Yeah. One strategy that I used to use is from an author, Fred Jones. He had a book called Positive Classroom Discipline, and he had some other more research-heavy books before that. But the idea was time. Like I could give time. So if I said, you have 1 minute to get ready. So if they got ready in 40 seconds, I would write up on the board 20 seconds. And they've kind of banked that time so that on Friday we would have like an extended game that we would play. But it was a game for learning. But they would use the transition time. They could earn game time on Friday.
Sustainable.
Yeah, sustainable.
So I may have changed your mind.
Yeah, you did. You swayed me. So we'll put a link to that video. There's a couple other questions to think about. And they're worthwhile. So yeah, let's transition to our tool for this topic.
Yeah.
What's our go-to for this week?
I think our go-to this week is Nearpod.
Nearpod.
So Nearpod is essentially, if you've never heard of it, there's another company called Pear Deck that is similar to them. Right. Do very similar things. They essentially, I wouldn't want to say digitize because presentations usually already digital.
Right.
However, what they do have is a bunch of interactive tools that you can actually apply or layer into or over your current slides.
Right.
Things like draw tools. So you bring in something. I think my go-to example is always when I was in teaching 6th grade and I was teaching science, and we were talking about plate tectonics, and we were talking about different things like convergent, divergent boundaries. Yeah. I would just, let's say, on the fly, say, all right, everybody, let's see what you know about a divergent boundary. Draw the arrows. Which way would the boundaries? Which way would the plates be moving? Yeah. And so, would they be crossing by each other? Would they be crashing into each other? Or would they be pulling away from each other? And so, very simply, those images would appear on my screen and my screen only. Yeah. And I could quickly see if, Rosanna or Bob or Jay or whoever are getting it right. And I could just have small conversations. I don't have to put anybody on blast, or I can just address the whole class and just kind of have that soft and say, here's what it should look like,
Yeah.
they would go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And, we could do a lot of other things, but it's a teaching moment. If you have 90% of the class, understanding what a convergent boundary is, then you move on. And then you have those other conversations, maybe more privately or in groups with the students. So that's just one aspect. It has a lot of other different things. I don't know if you, we just had Nearpod also come out to our district and we're doing some things with them.
Yeah. So
but
like,
I have more to talk about, but
when they do the drawings, then you can display all of them and remove the username so that you can show everybody's work and comment on it, but you're not giving feedback that's putting anyone on blast, so to speak. But Nearpod also has games, so like Kahoot and some of those other tools that we may have already mentioned, where you can have points for each and a leaderboard. But one thing we want to just tell you to check out is like you can get a free account. So
you can get a free account for there. I believe it limits you to 30 students, but that's not a problem. I know we always want. If we get iPads, we want one-to-one iPads, we want one-to-one Chromebooks.
Yeah.
But in this case, you could use it as a competitive and a cooperative tool by just, if you have more than 30, so you just pair them up. It's a pretty simple concept. You pair them up. Yeah. You have 32, you have 16 groups of 2, you're golden, and you can use those accounts.
Pablo and Wes, you're working together on one device. And we have to talk about the answer and then submit.
And it's as simple as if you don't know Nearpod, you create the whole lesson. You can actually bring in your existing PowerPoints, Google Slides, what's the other one? Keynote. You can bring those in and it'll transform it into a Nearpod presentation without too much of the formatting being destroyed. Most of it, 99% of it comes through. And you can just lay in and lay over all of the tools that I talked about. And it's a magnificent tool that once you create that, you have a join live number. Yeah. Pablo and Wes were a team. We go online to nearpod.com. We just punch in that number and we're in the game. Yeah. Or we're into the slideshow.
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy to use.
Absolutely.
So just if you want to check it out, we have kind of something for you to check out. So when you log in, just type in the search under Explorer. I think it's called, look for icebreakers. You could type in would you rather. So there's a would you rather game. I think it's designed for secondary, but it introduces a question and it'll say to like Pablo and Wes, it'll say, would you rather have 10 lives of 100 years each, or would you rather have one life of 1,000 years? And so then we're talking to each other about what's our... So we're cooperating, but then we type in the response and then that goes to the teacher. And so it's this cooperative icebreaker type activity, but then it's sort of gamified and the teacher can draw those responses and use it for the whole class.
It's funny. I've never done that in Nearpod, but I have seen the actual lesson. Mm-hmm. But have you ever done a would you rather in the class or anywhere else, like in any conferences?
I've never done it.
So it's pretty cool. It's would you rather, you just split the room in half.
Yeah.
And one side will be just like you just said.
Oh, okay.
It's the analog.
I've done like
similar
four corners.
Right. So it's the analog version.
Yeah. I've done. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a top 3 list for you to think about in terms of whether to go cooperative or go to competitive strategy. And so should we go forward or backward?
Yeah, do you believe that one's...
Let's go.
Let's go forward.
Guide number, rule number, principle number, guideline number 1 is build relationships first. Relationships first. So no matter if you're going to play a game, make sure you've invested in the team building and the kind of spirit you want that game to be executed in. If you throw in kids together and you're trying to, amp up the energy and make it competitive and they don't really trust each other, you can end up with hurt feelings, things like that. So number 1 strategy is build relationships first. Number 2.
No matter what you choose, build the opportunity for reflection. Being reflective is super important. Yeah. I mean, and you should do it always. Yeah. Like every single time. Yeah. Giving that reflection is just as powerful as the feedback that you might get as well from somebody else.
Yeah. So asking students, how did you like this strategy? Yeah. What did you like about it? you might learn if you give that opportunity for reflection. And
Yeah, they might not even like the game.
Right.
Like if
you might think it's working.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like,
we know best, right?
Yeah.
I'm winking.
All right. And then number 3 of our top 3 list is favor the strategy that fits best with your long-term goal. So if you want, to build like a team that's just cutthroat and they're always going for the points, maybe you're using competitive strategies that have kind of high stakes win-lose types of situations. But maybe that's not your overall goal. Maybe you want to favor more like, hey, I want my classroom to be more cooperative and team building and supporting each other. And not that games can't be that, but just choose the one that helps you get to your long-term goal. Because you might be like, hey, I'm getting them with the engagement on the game. And then you don't realize the classroom culture is kind of shifting towards, the smart kids who answer the quickest or are dominating the game. And
which happens a lot. Which happens a lot.
And I say smart kids in quotes because, we have all these different types of intelligences and predispositions. You have students who are highly skilled kinesthetically and they're not, winning those cognitive games in your classroom based on the academic outcomes. All right.
Well, that was competition versus cooperation.
Yeah,
right?
that's
I like
kind of our go deep, our first
I liked
attempt.
it.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Do you like this version, or do you like kind of the more surface level, but
quick touches
on 3 different segments?
Let us know,
please.
Yeah, please let us know, and we're going to give that as a reflective opportunity for you and for us.
We can handle it.
Yeah. All right.
Got some tough skin.
All right. So we got some social media shout outs.
Shout it out.
One of my favorite parts. So we're going to give a social media shout out to Too Cool for Middle School on Instagram.
Way to go. Too Cool for Middle School. That's Megan Forbes,
Absolutely.
middle school teacher.
Yes. So the cool part about this, why we're highlighting it, YouTuber as well.
Yeah.
YouTuber as well. And so we asked her, hey, in terms of new teachers, which of your, and I can't remember how many YouTube videos she has, but there's many. I want to say it's like 1,000.
I'm going to find it while you're talking.
Okay, yeah.
We're getting there.
So she gave us like her top 2 or 3 YouTube videos from her channel that she would recommend for new teachers. So we'll put the link to the show notes, put the link to those videos in the show notes. And also, she was just interviewed on a School of Thought podcast. And so we don't have the date, but we'll put that out on our Instagram when that podcast comes out featuring her.
Okay.
Very cool. I think that's it for today.
Yeah, just following up. I couldn't find the number, but a lot of cool videos.
Yeah, and 17,000 subscribers.
Last one was 5 days ago, so go check it out.
She's killing it.
Yep.
All right.
We good?
Peace out.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.